Enjoy 9 fascinating and unique experiences, only found in Tibet, that will amaze you to the core. Welcome, everyone, near and far, who has visited the Mysterious Universe channel. Today, we will embark on a completely different and unique journey of exploration together. Come to Tibet, a land whose very name evokes a sense of mystery and immense allure. Well, everyone knows Tibet sits atop the roof of the world, covered in snow year-round, with air so thin that just breathing can make you tired. But few know that beneath that pristine white snow lies a treasure trove of strange and thrilling stories, enough to make you wide-eyed with wonder. There, cow dung is not something to avoid like the plague. On the contrary, it is a symbol of wealth and prosperity. In fact, people even bake cakes from cow dung to offer tourists to taste. Sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? Not all. In Tibet, after hearing that, I didn't know whether to believe it or just be stunned. And have you ever imagined a scene where everyone, from old to young, sticks out their tongues to greet each other? Here, they believe doing so is a joy, a happiness, and also a way to show hospitality. Why is that? Is this superstition or a survival secret forged from life experience in the extreme regions? Surely by now, you're very curious, right? So sit down, steady your mind, and let's explore 9 strange and unbelievable things about Tibet right away. Guaranteed after hearing, you'll just want to pack your bags and go on a trip to discover and experience it for yourself. Let's get started right away. Let's go. Plastering cow dung on walls, the unique wealth-building secret of Tibetans. Yes, you heard that absolutely right. In Tibet, what many of us would avoid from a mile away is considered a heaven-sent treasure. If you ever pass by a small village on the snow-covered plateau, you'll surely be wide-eyed with amazement to see every house wall covered neatly and skillfully with patches of cow dung, like wall tiles. Sounds a bit arrogant, doesn't it? But for Tibetans, this is not just a habit, it's also a subtle way of asserting their wealth. The more dung on the walls and the more dung cakes in the yard, the more it proves that household has a strong herd of cows and goats as numerous as the Mongol army. And that certainly makes them a formidable contender. You know, life in the cold southern lands is harsh. Trees can't grow due to lack of oxygen, so people there must have resilient health. So, cow dung might sound crude, but its value is no different from honeycomb briquettes. Just dry it, and it can be used to light stoves, cook, boil water, and it doesn't smell foul as many think. In fact, locals even claim that dried yak dung has a distinctive fragrance, like dried grass. All thanks to the herds grazing naturally, eating only clean grass, drinking cool spring water, and sometimes even nourished by precious cordyceps. Hearing this, you must be curious to smell what dried cow dung is like, right? But don't laugh too soon, because in some regions, there are rumors of baked cakes made from cow dung originating from India. Not certain, but if I get the chance to go, maybe I. Back to the main point. Cow dung is not only used for cooking but also repurposed as building material, fencing, bedding for pens, and even fuel. And from that, a unique economic indicator was born. A household with a towering dung pile is often seen as wealthy and admirable. Similar to the Vietnamese tradition of displaying a 5-fruit tray during Tet, only the aroma here is a bit different. However, not every tradition is worth preserving forever. Though convenient, clean, and friendly to the locals, cow dung is the silent culprit behind climate change. Some recent studies show that burning cow dung in a cow releases over 1,000 tons of carbon annually. A type of ultra-fine particulate that can absorb heat, thereby accelerating snowmelt. In the Himalayan region, where the climate is already harsh, these impacts become even more severe. The warming rate in this area is 3 to 5 times faster than the global average. So, it's said that cow dung in Tibet is not merely a dirty matter as many mistakenly believe, but also a cultural slice where core value isn't measured by appearances. A way humans adapt and survive in harsh nature. However, that very adaptation also brings unforeseen consequences we cannot overlook. So later, if anyone asks where cow dung is considered a precious thing, you can confidently answer: Tibet, where each dried dung pellet contains stories of survival and the pride of the people in the land of snow. Desire to marry is completely unrelated and should not be equated with any prior sexual experiences. A person, hearing that title, you were startled, right? The aunt firmly asserted that the sister had slept with 20 people. Sorry for the delay, but stay calm because this bizarre story is completely true. Called the Tibet is not only a sacred land with majestic snow-capped mountains but also a place where prayer flags flutter in the wind. This place is not only famous for its beauty but also preserves dozens of unique customs. Hearing about them makes you want to swoon. One of those unique customs is the practices reserved for women before they go to their husband's home. More specifically, girls must have sexual relations with at least 20 men to be eligible for marriage. Sounds completely contrary to our Eastern notions, doesn't it? In our country, preserving a girl's virginity is always valued, but conversely, in Old Tibet, marrying a virgin girl was considered a bad omen, folks. It was believed that virginity could bring honor to the husband's family and even make married life more stable. Therefore, to prove they had ample experience, girls had to find 20 men to practice with. And after each time, they would ask for an item back as proof. Surely many of you are wondering, do those men bear any responsibility? Well, of course not. Once it's done, everyone goes their separate ways. The girl accumulates enough emotional experience and can be considered graduated from premarital training. However, the story doesn't end there. In Tibet, there once existed a polyandry system, meaning one woman could marry multiple men simultaneously, and these husbands were often biological brothers from the same family. Hearing that, you can already smell the drama about to explode. When a man takes a wife, his older brothers also become husbands to that wife. The eldest brother is the pillar, acting as the father figure in the family, while the younger brothers are also husbands but in secondary positions. And who fathers the children no longer matters, as all are considered common children. Old Tibetans believed doing this would help preserve property, preventing it from being divided. Fight over fields, houses, and most importantly, dawn. Simply put, when the whole group shares one wife, what's left to argue about? Of course, this custom has gradually faded today, mainly preserved in remote areas. Older folks still hold onto it, but today's youth are no longer keen. Reimagining Tibetan boys lining up for residency permits, but if you think carefully, suppose you were thrown back to Tibet decades ago, honestly, would you dare to marry? Or just like me, after hearing it, you can only sigh helplessly and leave the husband to others. Customs like these aren't even the strangest in this land. Next will be a ritual even more bizarre and unbelievable, guaranteed to astonish you when you hear it. If before, you only heard of strange burial customs like leaving the dead outdoors in Chunian village on Bali Island. The Chinese have the custom of hanging coffins on cliff faces, and the Toraja people in Indonesia live with the deceased. Then the event in Tibet is truly a major cultural shock for you. Just imagine, instead of burying underground or cremating as usual, Tibetans choose to take the deceased's body up to high mountains, called Chotvod, to perform a sky burial ritual. So hearing this, has anyone pictured the little chicken? The evacuation journey starts early in the morning, as dawn just breaks over the cold mountains. Family escorts together but doesn't. They keep a moderate distance, chanting scriptures and playing funeral music as they walk, creating a solemn and mystical atmosphere. The body is taken to a special mountain location, where those titled Zero Gyapa, masters of corpse handling, begin their work. Can you guess what they do? The action isn't just simply placing the body down, they also use sharp blades, carefully separating skin, flesh, organs, and even limbs to prepare a meal for the young fledglings. Hearing that sends a chill down your spine, right? But there's more. After handling the soft parts, the Zero Gyapa continue by crushing the bones, mixing them with barley flour so the birds can eat more easily. What is the purpose of this? According to Tibetan Buddhist belief, when a person dies, their soul leaves the body to enter a new cycle of reincarnation. Now, the body is merely a lifeless shell, so allowing the vultures to feed on it can be considered a final act of charity. That is how the deceased can continue to contribute to life. The meaning is indeed profound, but when you think of that scene, how does it make you feel? I find it both strange and a bit chilling, as if even in death, one cannot find peace. This custom is not merely a ritual, it also conceals profound narratives about life, death, and spiritual beliefs. That question leaves us pondering. Have we become so accustomed to the familiar things around us that we forget the vast world out there still holds countless wonders and mysteries waiting to be discovered? What do you guys think about bathing in a waterfall? Do you find it a frightening experience or a wonderful way to immerse yourself in nature? Please comment and share with me. A city without a single tree. It sounds almost like a joke, because in the 21st century, who would have thought that on this green planet there could still exist a vast, spacious city without even one tree in sight? Amidst the arid desert, resilient cacti still stretch upward. On the lofty, frigid peaks blanketed with white snow, pine forests stand tall and flourish. However, Nagku City in Tibet, with an area of over 160,000 square kilometers and a population of 500,000 people, has been unable to grow a single decent tree for thousands of years. Not that people don't. Exactly right, you didn't. Here, snow and ice cover the land year-round, and the permafrost prevents tree roots from penetrating the ground. Just imagine planting a tree on a cold, rigid rock and it will become clear. No matter how much water you pour or how much fertilizer you apply, the tree simply cannot sprout and flourish. Not to mention, the wind here is truly formidable. In winter, it blows so fiercely that it can uproot ancient banyan trees, let alone the newly planted saplings. The wind blew incessantly, carrying with it dense clouds of dust and sand. How could the fragile young trees possibly stand firm? From November to March, Nagku endures an extremely harsh dry season. The weather is bitterly cold, and the ground is frozen. Rain falls, but the earth cannot absorb it. The water flows away, leaving the trees unable to drink it in. As a result, the vegetation becomes sparser with each monsoon season. Only barren rocky mountains, exposed fields, and sweeping winds remain. It is worth mentioning that Nagku is not poor in resources. It possesses a rare type of cordyceps, is renowned for its snow lotuses, and is home to many species of wild animals. But even the green trees had to yield. It was this that left people utterly astonished. Some people even say that they drove the bus for hours just to get down to the nearby city of Lhasa to find a shady spot to rest. Surely, those of you who live in places where you just have to look out the window to see rows of tamarind and flame trees will be very surprised to hear this. But what is precious is that, no matter how harsh it gets, the people of Nagku have never given up. Despite the harsh nature, they persistently plant trees day and night, improve the soil, block the wind, and preserve water sources. Local authorities even offered rewards of hundreds of thousands of yuan to those who could plant trees that would survive the winter. In that seemingly hopeless place, there lay an extraordinarily resilient will. Each tree that takes root here is not merely a biological entity, but has become a source of pride for the entire community. Therefore, if you hear that somewhere there is a tree that can grow in Nagku, do not be quick to underestimate it. Therefore, it is not merely a tree, but also the crystallization of human aspirations, perseverance, and unwavering faith in this seemingly indifferent land. Have you ever imagined that in this world, there still exists a mountain whose summit no one has been able to conquer, even after centuries have passed? A place where it is believed that merely setting foot there can bend time and cause space to no longer follow any rules. If you find it hard to believe, we invite you to visit Kailash, the most sacred site in Tibet, renowned as the mountain that humanity cannot conquer. From afar, Mount Kailash stands tall like a colossal pyramid, so exquisitely crafted it appears to have been carved by the hands of the gods. The mountain peak is always bathed in a pure white light, even amidst the surrounding cold ice and snow. Tibetans firmly believe that this land is the gateway to the seventh realm, the abode of sages and enlightened beings who attained spiritual awakening since ancient times. T want to, but because they couldn't. Already, there were professional mountaineering teams that were fully equipped and highly elite, with a strong determination to conquer Mount Kailash. However, it is strange that either they suddenly change their minds halfway up the mountain, or they encounter inexplicable problems that force them to give up. It is also said that when climbing near the summit, one's hands begin to whirl, time seems to stand still, and the body feels as if being pulled into another dimension. Just hearing about it is already spine-chilling. Not stopping there, a series of mysterious numbers surrounding Kailash have also left the scientific community at a loss, unable to explain them. Were you surprised to learn that this mountain has an average height of 6,666 meters, and the distances from it to both Stonehenge and the North Pole are exactly 6,666 kilometers? Furthermore, the distance from Kailash to the South Pole is 13,332 kilometers, which is double the previous figure. Could it just be a mere coincidence? At first glance, it sounds quite reasonable, but the more you compare and contrast, the harder it becomes to believe. Not only that, researchers have also discovered mysterious connections between Kailash and other ancient structures. For example, the distance from the Mexican pyramid to the Pyramid of Khufu in Egypt is 3 times the distance from the Pyramid of Khufu to Mount Kailash. From Kailash to Easter Island, the distance is 3 times the length of Stonehenge. Many hypotheses have been proposed, and one of them suggests that Mount Kailash is actually an ancient artificial pyramid, built by a civilization that vanished tens of thousands of years ago. Some people also believe that this place was once the energy center of the Earth, the intersection of ley lines, an invisible energy network covering the planet. Fact or just conspiracy theory? To this day, no one dares to be certain. But one thing is certain: this mountain is not a place to joke around. For Tibetans, Kailash is an absolutely sacred land, where no one is allowed to trespass, climb, or exploit. One careless step, and you might pay the price not only with your life but also with your very soul. And it is precisely because of these unsolved mysteries that Kailash still stands majestically in the heart of Tibet, full of pride and challenge, like a gateway to another world. What would you think if one day you stood before the sacred Mount Kailash? Would you bravely move forward, or choose to turn back, sticking out your tongue to greet each other, a seemingly paradoxical custom but one that holds profound meanings? Sticking out the tongue, an act often considered impolite or even provocative in many places, is seen in Tibet as one of the friendliest and most traditional ways of greeting. At first, it sounds strange, but upon reflection, it's clear that each region has its own customs, and each custom carries its own unique beauty. Now imagine this. You accidentally set foot in Tibet and meet a kind elderly person. They say nothing, just smile at you and slowly stick out their tongue. If I weren't familiar with local customs at that moment, I'd definitely be startled, thinking they were mocking me. But that's not the case at all. It's a characteristic friendly bow of greeting among Tibetans. I want to convey to you that I come here with all sincerity and goodwill, without any ill intentions whatsoever. This custom sounds interesting, but its origin is tied to a strange and rather eerie historical story. It is said that since the 9th century, Tibetans have passed down the story of a king named Lang Dharma. A persecutor of Buddhism, cruel and rumored to have a tongue as black as ink. Fearing his reincarnation in human form, Tibetans would stick out their tongues when meeting to prove that their tongues were not black. From an act meant to ward off evil spirits, the tongue-sticking custom gradually evolved into a unique cultural symbol. It's not just a greeting, it's also how Tibetans express goodwill, humility, and faith in a peaceful, pure life without harming anyone. The subtlety lies in the fact that they don't say much, don't shake hands, and don't show off with hugs or kisses. Just stick out your tongue once, and I understand everything. I am not a bad person. I come here as a friend. Warmth without conditions, sincerity without ostentation, truly the Tibetan way. Just think. Our world has over 8 billion people, more than 200 countries, and countless ethnic groups with thousands of different customs. If we insist on imposing our subjective views to judge others, we may unintentionally lose the valuable and interesting aspects of different cultures. Here, sticking out the tongue is no longer seen as strange. It has become a bridge connecting sincere hearts. After understanding the true meaning of this custom, many tourists, initially curious, gradually become delighted and even imitate sticking out their tongues to greet locals in return. Some even share that the feeling of using their tongue to communicate for the first time made them feel renewed, with less suspicion and judgment, and more open to differences. Of course, not everyone easily accepts a culture so contrary to common norms. But if you have the chance, try sticking out your tongue to greet a Tibetan once to experience this wordless yet deeply heartfelt communication. Sometimes, a sincere handshake is worth more than 100 sweet but fake words. So, don't hesitate or rush to judge, because it is these differences that make a place unique. And who knows, from just a friendly tongue gesture, you might begin a fascinating journey exploring Tibet and its genuine people. Tibetan attire is a grand cultural epic. Have you ever thought that a piece of clothing could tell a long story about culture, faith, and history? If not, you probably haven't seen traditional Tibetan clothing. In a place known as the roof of the world, clothing is not just for warmth or beauty. It also clearly shows who you are, where you come from, and what you believe in. In Tibet, Every piece of clothing worn is not just attire but also part of the soul of the entire nation. Just by looking at how they dress, we can see the harmony between faith, natural conditions, and lifestyle. For example, the chuba. Anyone who has set foot on the Tibetan plateau has surely seen locals wearing this long, thick, and loose robe. The chuba is handmade from homespun wool, sometimes even with animal fur, to withstand the bone-chilling cold of the snowy plateau. And here's something special. The chuba isn't always worn the same way. People in high mountain areas need to wear thick, enclosed clothing for warmth, while in lower regions, attire can be lighter and neater. As the weather varies, so do the people, and clothing flexibly adapts to the climate. As for Tibetan women, it's no exaggeration to say they're like living, vibrant color palettes. Long skirts with multiple layers of fabric form soft pleats, intricate patterns, and bright, eye-catching colors. Against the cold backdrop of white snow, one can see an incredibly vivid painting. Jewelry made from silver, coral, and turquoise, also known as sky blue stone. Not only does it have aesthetic value, but it also holds deeply profound spiritual meanings. Many people believe they have the effect of warding off evil, bringing luck, and expressing reverence to the gods. In Tibet, clothing is not just for wearing but also a measure of social status, you know. Whether rich or poor, islanders or outsiders, married or not, just by looking at the way they dress, you can tell right away. For example, women wearing striped waist scarves are usually those who are married. Hairstyles and the way hats are worn can also indicate social status or the region where a person lives. Even a small detail is enough to contain so many meaningful messages. It's truly subtle. Many tourists have shared that their first impression upon arriving in Tibet was not the majestic mountains. It was the people and the colorful costumes they wear, amid a culture rich in Buddhist spirit, with a simple yet profound beauty. Each costume is how Tibetans preserve the memory of their ancestors and connect with their roots. Not elaborate, not flashy, yet every detail exudes a special aura, both wild and elegant. So people often say, coming to Tibet without learning about the traditional clothing here is like only completing half the journey. Because clothing here is not merely fabric, but the soul of an entire culture. It is a wordless story, spanning from the past to the present. You see, each garment hides its own story, and every pattern on it is a message waiting to be conveyed. And who knows, amidst those vibrant colors, you might find inspiration to live slower and deeper. Living with roots helps us stand firmer in our own lives. What do you think about the unique cultural aspect of Tibetans? Don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video until the end. If you found this video interesting, don't hesitate. Now, goodbye for now. See you all soon.